Well done. Thank you, Sheriff. Now it's my very great pleasure to introduce my family's good friend, Stuart Force, who will address us on ending the misuse of our tax dollars to fund Palestinian Authority terrorism. Stuart and Robbie are the courageous parents of the American hero, Captain Taylor Force. They have stood up and committed themselves to transforming their tragic loss into positive policy action, namely the Taylor Force Act that will stop American taxpayers from subsidizing the Palestinian Authority's pay-to-slay program. Welcome, Stuart. You got it.
Good afternoon, everybody. And the remarks I'd like to make are personal. On March 8th, 2016, a parent's worst nightmare became our reality in an unexpected and truly horrific manner. That Tuesday afternoon, I received a call on my cell phone as I walked to my car in a nearby parking lot. The caller identified herself as Chaplain Gretchen from Vanderbilt University and said she was on speakerphone with the university chancellor and the dean of the business school. I knew this was not going to be good. Our son Taylor was a first-year MBA student on an educational trip to Israel, sponsored by the university. He was an Eagle Scout, a West Point graduate, and as an Army officer, had completed combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, accomplishing the mission and bringing the men under his command safely back home. Chaplain Gretchen said that there had been a terrorist rampage in Jaffa, Israel. A 22-year-old Palestinian man had stabbed people strolling on a boardwalk near the waterfront. Taylor was the only one in his small group of 6 classmates that was attacked. He was stabbed viciously from behind in the neck, back, and lungs. He passed away in the ambulance en route to the hospital. I asked Chaplain Gretchen if she had spoken to Robbie, my wife. She said no. I quickly told her, please don't call home. I'll call you back later. I drove to the house, did the hardest thing I have ever done or ever will do. I told my wife of 35 years that our wonderful son had been murdered. After crying and hugging, we realized that we needed to call our daughter Kristen, who lived and worked in New York City. That was the second hardest thing I've ever done, telling Kristen that she had lost her brother, her best friend in the world. 2 months later, Sander passed along his deepest condolences and shared 2 links with us. One to a video and one to a PDF file. The YouTube video showed people throughout Palestine celebrating the cowardly murder of our son and celebrating the proclamation of his killer as a martyr. The PDF was a translation of Palestinian law detailing payments for terrorist acts committed in Israel by Palestinians. The stipends for life were on a sliding scale. The worse the crime, the higher the reward, up to 3 times the average monthly Palestinian income. We were appalled and disgusted. A few days later, Sander connected us with Senator Lindsey Graham, which resulted in Robbie and I being here in D.C. when Senator Graham introduced the Taylor Force Act legislation at a press conference. The act withholds foreign aid that the Americans generously give to the Palestinian Authority until it can be certified to the Secretary of State that the money, $350 million in 2017, is not being used to fund the pay-for-slay program. It also requires Palestinian Authority law be changed to stop encouraging these acts of terror. The Palestinian Authority leadership tells the world that these payments are simply social welfare payments. But we aren't suckers. We know that these are U.S. taxpayer dollars being used to incentivize and fund terror. It has been emotional and distressing to relive the loss of our son over the past 2 years. But we have come to realize that there are so many more good people in the world than there are evil ones. The evil ones seem to get all the attention online and in the media. The good people of the world deserve better. Passing the Taylor Force Act and stopping the terror funding is a great place to start the process. The House has passed its version of the act. The next step is to allocate floor time on the Senate, pass its version, reconcile the two, and send it to President Trump for his signature. Robbie and I, and everyone we speak with, believe that this is not a partisan issue. This is an anti-terrorism issue. This is a right versus wrong issue. We look forward to being in the Senate gallery when the act passes with unanimous, bipartisan support, and we can fist bump, hug, and cry like we did in the House gallery. From the Force family and the many people Taylor so positively impacted in his all-too-short life, thank you for your encouragement and support now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. It's a great tragedy the Force family has been through, and it's time that we implement the Trump doctrine and stop being suckers and stop giving our tax money to the Palestinian Authority. To sum up the panels, Attorney General Rutledge said we refuse to be suckers. We got to support the rule of law, support our law enforcement. Bill Walton said trade is not fair. We have to stop being suckers with the Chinese. We have to make it fair. Sheriff Clark said, we have to demand that Congress passes President Trump's 4 pillars of immigration reform. We've got to stop being suckers with our borders. And lastly, Stuart and Robbie Force asked that their son, Taylor, not die in vain, but that our Congress honor his exemplary life by passing the Taylor Force Act. We refuse to be suckers. We refuse to fund the Palestinian Authority's pay-to-slave program with our taxpayer money. The time for the Senate to act is now. Thank you.